What would you say to the mainstream media right now, and more recently to Joe Biden, who called your handling of reopening this state's economy irresponsible? Introduce yourself to the viewers and tell us what you guys are all about here. Supports our offenders more than he supports tax-paying Americans. Supports our criminals more than the men and women in blue. As one of the country's largest and hardest hit states, New York's emotional and economic recovery is no small task. And it is hard to imagine that an embattled governor could lead such a rebound. In this case, as with every other case that involves lawmen and citizens, we cannot be prejudiced or presumptive in either direction. Now, law enforcement officials shared with One America News that investigators and the FBI are now looking into whether this was an ISIS-inspired attack. Medical personnel calling city hospitals war zones. A makeshift morgue has been built in front of one of the city's major hospitals to deal with the unexpected spike, as the city is now responsible for roughly 30% of the nation's cases. While debates over the legitimacy of the election results continues, one factor remains consistent for half of Americans. President Donald Trump kept his promises. We've been gathered here by officers, law enforcement, EMTs, all of our first responders that were there on that horrific day. With this America Last narrative unfolding in front of us, tens of thousands of Americans, tens of millions of Americans right now are longing for Donald Trump and his America First policies. He has appointed Supreme Court justices that will ensure these fundamental rights are protected now and for years to come. What would you say is key for those voters right now that are walking away from their base? We still need every state legislator to speak up. Thank you for forging ahead with this, Congresswoman. He has prioritized gun-related prosecutions. I mean, this number compares favorably to what other recent presidents have accomplished. Right now, we are under this one-party rule in the city and state as far as our representation in Washington goes. That's the story we're hearing over and over. So Democrats really shouldn't be surprised. I don't mean to play tough guy. I just want to clarify things for our viewers, as I'm sure you appreciate.
Here's One America's Caitlin Sinclair.
New York Governor Cuomo says the state will review a potential COVID-19 vaccine before administering it to any New Yorkers. This is due to the governor's fear of a politicized process. Now, of course, this is despite assurances from our nation's top health officials. The governor even urged New Yorkers during a press briefing last week to not trust the federal government's opinion. Take a listen.
So the first question is the vaccine safe? Frankly, I'm not going to trust the federal government's opinion. New York State will have its own review when the federal government is finished with their review and says it's safe. Governor Cuomo trying to tap into fears with a number of top Democrats that President Trump or members of his administration will seek to politicize the vaccine. However, New Yorkers aren't falling for the fear-mongering.
Yeah, I would trust our FDA. I think it's pretty selfish of him, and I think he should care about the New Yorkers.
That's totally wrong. If there's a vaccine to help people, he should use it and not to continue this fight with President Trump.
It is unclear how long such a process would take, but reports indicate adding these extra steps could lead to a delay in distribution for the Big Apple.
I think it's wrong. I think that, we need to come together and we need to really figure out, something that can just get us back on the same page, get us back to where we left off in February. We need to get back to our real lives.
Fastest you do it, the better. And let them settle their fight on the side.
Officials have dismissed the idea that politics could undermine the safety of a vaccine, while working to assure the public despite the fears being voiced by a few Democrats. On Wednesday, Food and Drug Administration Commissioner Stephen Hahn said the agency, quote, would not authorize or approve a vaccine that we would not feel comfortable giving our families. Now, the governor has set up his own review board to advise him on distributing any vaccines. Yet new reports indicate that 20-person committee is actually made up of the governor's own donors and colleagues.
If one is approved, I would absolutely feel more than comfortable taking one.
A vaccine should be used to help people, and that's that. All the differences that Cuomo has with Trump, they should solve it in a different way.
And the major problem, that double check of a vaccine would cost money the state does not have. Now, scientists around the world have warned that rhetoric around a COVID-19 vaccine could further undermine people's faith just when that shot is needed the most. Caitlin Sinclair, One America News, New York.
One America's Caitlin Sinclair has more on those responses.
President Donald Trump signed a memo on Wednesday that would cut federal funding from lawless cities. At the top of that list, New York. The memo cites New York's rising murder rates and the defunding of our police officers. Governor Andrew Cuomo shot back at the memo, threatening our president's safety if he returns to the city. The president's memo instructs Attorney General Barr to develop a list of anarchist jurisdictions that permitted violence and the destruction of property to persist and have refused to undertake reasonable measures to restore order. Now, Governor Cuomo called an emergency press briefing within a half hour after word of the memo was released.
Forget bodyguards. He better have an army if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York. He can't come back to New York. He can't. He's going to walk down the street in New York.
The New York governor speaking on behalf of all New Yorkers, while they don't exactly share those same views.
I think that not one person can speak for everyone.
He is out of his mind.
And what residents actually think of President Trump's condition.
He is trying to put this all together, but Democrats are destroying every one of those.
Help is needed kind of everywhere. In a little bit, I mean, politicians have a little bit of an ego sometimes. I think that ego could be let go a little bit and help the public.
Cuomo said he was uncertain about the legality of Trump's 5-page memo, which would order a review of federal funds that can be redirected from New York City, Portland, Seattle, and Washington, D.C.
President Trump has actively been trying to kill New York City ever since he's been elected.
Yet one might ask if it is the current policies that are actually killing the city, leading to the soaring murder rates, the rise in shootings, and the ongoing violence.
My doorman said, get in the building, because they just smashed a window.
Everything's de Blasio's fault. We got to build the city back.
The president says that under his watch, the administration will not allocate federal tax dollars to cities that allow themselves to deteriorate. The president has insisted that the unrest is due to Democratic officials refusing to execute their duties, and New Yorkers seem to echo that sentiment. Caitlin Sinclair, One American News, New York.